we are first supposed to schedule a test. You guys were supposed to tell me if you had any other major exams coming up. The 18th. Okay, that's far away. I'm thinking 9/11. Telling me I can't do 9/11. It's too days. How? If I find first, if I come up with a test that covers enough material, I'll just call it at one. If I do that, it usually ends up. What labs? Not this week. So probably up to 15. So what did we have? Last time we kicked off we stopped at 7. So we have 8 was reading a file in different ways, and creating and this was make an object. So make an object from a text file, like a CSV type of text file. So before we had files, we just kind of read them and just sort of slapped out the stuff. But then in 8, it's reading along with parsing, and this file was like maybe a CSV or some other delimited file. That was 8, so that's possible stuff. Then we moved into JSON. So in JSON, there's more structure in the file, so you don't have to make the object, because when you read the JSON, it makes the object for you. That was 9. 10, we played with check boxes. In 11, we got images off the web. So as far as code goes, that was pretty easy, but the trick there was to have the Gradle rights and so on, and the permissions to the internet, so the Android manifest and the Gradle. Then we did volley, which was JSON off the internet. So all of the issues of JSON plus the issues of getting JSON off the internet. So that was fun. That was probably the most complex of our things. And then what were we getting here? This was a more complicated JSON. I don't think I'll give you more complicated JSON on a test. Now you think that my not complicated JSON is complicated. You have to pay attention to what the names of the fields are. You have to pay attention to whether it starts with an array or it starts with an object. But I won't put like arrays within arrays or something like we did here. So 13 is like officially one of the labs on the test that you have to have done by the days of the test, but not something I'm likely to put on a test with like arrays within arrays. Sensors, that generally, if you've done that lab, it's pretty easy stuff. You say, I want a sensor, you make a manager, you make a sensor, and then you do something with it. You know, you take in the reading. And then we did some media player and timer. So this new material won't be, this week's material won't be on the test, so you'll have a week to finish that older stuff. The homework, the new homework is an old test. So, and it is of the read JSON off the internet type of test. So that that should give you some decent practice. I have some other practice tests, but I have to, they were like Java, they were a little bit older, so I have to like change some things and update something. And if I get that figured out, I'll post it. Not something you have to do, but something that you can practice on. But I have at least one practice thing for you to do. Okay. So you have tests coming up that you told me about, but not in conflict with what I was thinking of. And okay, so that's what we're shooting for. If I'm going to throw in, there are different kinds of files and checkboxes and sensors and timers, all sorts of fun things. I'll probably end up with 2 parts because I like to test a little bit of everything. Not, I can't get in everything, but I try to get in as much as I can. Without making it a complete race. Right. Any other questions at this point? So, all right. Any questions for the recording of like problems you're having with labs? All right, so I'll get on to new stuff, not on the test. I'm going to work with preferences, which is basically a cookie, and then play a little bit with what's called a calendar view, and then you're just going to put them the two together. So you don't care because you're worried about what's coming before the test, but this is fairly easy. The sensor labs were pretty easy. People did them quickly. The media was not that hard either. So a lot of these things are just come to terms with what I did, modify it a bit, turn it back in. If you want feedback from me, then you need to be turning in things sort of now. You don't get feedback from me when you dump everything on me the day before the test, or the night after the test, the night, later in the day of the test. You get no feedback. You're just telling me you don't want my feedback. I'm terribly hurt, but okay. All right, so shared preferences. Again, this is same idea as like a cookie on a web page. This is remembering something, or you will close the app, open the app back up, and it will remember the things that you told it to remember in the shared preferences. Okay, so main activity main. Res layout activity main code paste. Okay, and with that main activity, okay, and let's run it. And what this is supposed to do, I just have a number of old one. Updated the variable. 31. All right, I'm going to change it back. Stop complaining in the main activity, no, or activity main, now main activity. Now that's stop complaining. Working for me. Sorry. Sync now. The thing that I've done no time before isn't working. All right. Let's see what I'm gonna say. I'm switching over. I'm gonna leave the meeting, come back in the meeting in my laptop where I can do 31. Oh, so it recorded that in between thing. How nice. Share the screen. Close a million thing, open Android. And what am I doing? Open. Recent shared preferences. There we go. Not shared preferences. Yes, shared preferences is the first one. Then it's the date. Okay. All right. All right. So what this guy does, not this guy, that's the second one. But what I'm going to do is just have some nothing interface. So
I'm opening this. It has a bunch of things, a username. Okay, so I have maybe Frank Ford. Okay, Frank Ford is 53. He makes 1725. He's going to choose on the seek bar 75. He likes strawberry ice cream. And now we want to remember all those things. So it's just some interface things, a string input, a number input, a float, like an integer input, a float input, a value of a seek bar, a value of a spinner. And so, and then a button to have us remember. And then I'm going to close it. I'm going to stop it from running and start it running again. And now it remembers. It's set, it remembered. So I closed it, I stopped it, I started it again, and it remembers the values and puts them into the, I write code to do that, but it remembers these things, and then I write code to have my widgets have those values. Okay, so how is this done? The layout, there was nothing to the layout that you haven't seen before. A label, a place for the user to enter their username, a label, a place for them to enter their age, a label, a place for them to enter their wage this time, so their age and then their wage, just some seek bar. I don't know what it's measuring, but something to play with, a seek bar. This is going to show the value of the seek bar. Here's a text, just a label, and says flavor. Here's the spinner to pick the flavor. Here's the button. Okay. I have an array of flavors, vanilla, chocolate, strawberry. I have variable names for the age, the wage, the progress, the flavor index, the username, and these are not the values I'm picking up. This username is quote, quote, the age was 0, the wage was $9.99, the progress was 50, and my flavor index was 0, which would have been vanilla. Okay, so it did not pick these things up. This is the usual connect to the interface. Here's the new stuff, the shared preference. And there'll be two sort of shared preference things. There will be the writing and the reading. So you're going to write something to remember, and then you are going to read it the next time. So we should have in here writing and reading shared preference. Okay. So on the third test, this won't be on this test 2, but this will be on test 3, something with some shared preference. There'll be 2 parts. There'll be a writing part and a reading part. And, you know, if you don't do both, it won't work. If you never write it, you can't read it. If you only write it, never read it, it's not useful. Okay. It is sort of a name for the area of shared preference. So you might be able to get somehow like related apps to share. So this is saying that the mode private is basically saying encode it. Don't store it in the clear. And this is just sort of a name so that I can have sort of different shared preferences. So maybe I can differentiate different users, or maybe I can share among things, something like that. So this is me sort of like instantiating that I'm going to have shared preference, and then I need to be able to put things in there. I need to be able to write. So that is an editor. Okay. So you might have something where you say, you know, some people can't edit, they can only read the things. So the editor is a sort of a separate thing. Okay. So this is pretty much just announcing I'm going to have shared preferences. This is the reading of the shared preferences. I'm saying I'm going to go to my shared preferences. I'm going to get a string. Preferences, shared preferences are always like these key value pairs. So the key is username. I don't know why I made it all capital letters, but I did. And then this is my default. If I don't have a shared preference called username, then make it John Doe. So this is not, I'm reading here. So this isn't, you know, later on when I'm writing, I'll say, here's where I want to write it, username, and here's what I want to write. But not here. Here I'm reading, but this is the, instead of doing this try catch, what if it's not there kind of crazy crap over and over again, you just work with the default value. If there wasn't a shared preference called username, then use John Doe. And it just saves you all that try catching. If there's not, there's a variable for, and this is a type dependent. So you specify the type of thing you're expecting to see. So the username was a string, get string. The age was an integer, get int. If you didn't, this is my default value of 1. Again, these values are different from this. So those initial values, if you remember when I first started, I wasn't seeing these things. I was seeing these default preference values. That's what I was seeing when I first started. So the wage is a float, so get float, and I start off with a 725. The progress was back to an integer, but I'm going to use that with my seek bar. And my flavor index was an integer, and I'm going to use that with my spinner. So these are the default values. If I didn't save anything, that's what I'm going to use. And then here's me using them. I set the text of the edit text username. I set it to that variable I just got from the shared preferences. And if it wasn't there, it's John Doe. I got the went in the edit text, the age, I set the text to quote, quote, plus the age, which I read from the shared preferences. And if it didn't have it, I gave the default value of 1. Here's the user wage. I did a little bit of formatting, but here's the wage that I got from the shared preferences. I set the progress of the seek bar to prog. I set the TV progress, that's the display for the progress, also to prog. And here, down here, why they put it way down there, I don't know, when all the other ones were up there. I set the selection of the spinner to the flavor index. So I don't know why I separated that from all the other ones that, oh, I have to, I'm telling myself why. I have to put this after establishing the contents of the spinner. So I just told myself why. why it's way down there, because I don't have a spinner yet. So I can't set the selection of the spinner since I don't have the spinner yet. So I can't do that at the top. I have to do that later. Thank you, previous version of myself. Okay. So this is on the in the onCreate. So that's the event when the interface is first coming up, and we established the widgets and said we're going to have shared preferences, and then set our variables based on the shared preferences, and then set the interface quantities based on the shared interface. Except we had to delay the spinner because the spinner doesn't have stuff in it yet. Okay, here's the save button. I am getting a username, an age, a wage, a progress, and a flavor index from my interface. So this is nothing to do with shared preferences. This is just me getting my variable values from my interface. Now I'm writing. Now it's put. There was a get. Up above it was a get. This was me reading. This is me writing. So on the save button, I am putting a string username and then using the username, which I got from I just got from the interface. And again, you have to, it wants to know about the type. So that was a string. The age was an int. The wage was a float. The progress was an int. The flavor index was an int. So there was a get and there was a put. Now we, for this to make sense, have to do, for it to be our stuff, we have to write, and then, but in the beginning, so when you start the program, it reads. So as far as the program is concerned, the reading occurs before the writing. But for us to make it of any use of it, for it to be remembering our stuff, then we have to write and then read. And that's why we have the default values, because usually the reading in the events of the program, usually the reading comes first, imagining that there was some previous history to be read. And so that's why there's a standard default value built in rather than us going through some crazy try catch for each value. Does this exist? Does that exist? Okay, so that was the button. Here's a standard progress, just changing the text, the TV, the text view progress text to the I, which is the progress. So just displaying the progress. Here's the usual array adapter stuff. I had an array of flavors, made an array adapter, used the array adapter to populate the spinner, had an item, and all I was doing was toasting it out. And then finally, when I had the spinner, I could set the spinner based on the shared preference. Okay, so again, the shared preference is the same idea as a cookie on a web page. Remember something from one time to another. They're key value pairs. They care about the type. And there is the get and there is the put. If you don't have both get and put, it won't make sense. If you change types, it will fail. So it's not too hard, but just some little things to pay attention to. Any questions? All right. Yes. How do I? So, okay, close this entirely. And I'll even go this far. So this is going to take a little bit longer. But now if I do and there's still Frank Ford, who's 53, makes 17.25 an hour, shows 75 on the seek bar, and Mike Strawberry. So remember, I closed the emulator, I closed Android Studio. Oh no, here it is, actually remembering, sorry, that was just the usual remembering of a previous thing. Now, if I went to Tools and went to the AVD Manager and I wiped the data, then the shared preferences would be gone. So would the program. The program would have to be reinstalled. Now, a question I have that I don't know the answer to off the top of my head, but maybe I can find out, is cookies often have a time, a lifetime, and shared preferences may have such a thing. I'd have to look into it a little bit. Probably it's a fairly standard cookie-ish thing to do, and this is pretty much a cookie. Anything else? So you could use it like you use a cookie. Somebody's filling out some forms. They're using a phone rather than a web page. They have things sort of filled out, and you don't want them to have to fill it out over and over again. If the app where, if they were to close the app for any reason, sort of fill in, a good part of the form back for them again. Remember their credit card and buy things for them or something. Okay. Let's go on to the next one. The next one was not open recent. Come on, open recent, there we are. Counting the days. I'll put it in this window. So this is just a little bit of work with what's called a calendar view and some date time stuff. And you saw this one popping up sort of at the other time, and it was this, that there is a little sort of calendar. So this says, I set the calendar to say when December 25th, 2021 is. And then I said, here's a button that just says how many days. And it's 53 days from now. And what I can choose I can use this calendar view to choose a different day. Christmas is too far away. When is Thanksgiving? Third Thursday in November, so also the 25th. And if I click on that, it updated this. So Thanksgiving is 23 days away. Okay, so let's have a look at that. There was over here, text view, a calendar view, and a button, and then another text view. So that's the simple little layout. So there is this thing called a calendar view. And then here's my main activity. This is me saying that it was setting the date December 25th, 2021. So the day is the day, the 25th, but the month is like 0 based. So it's not so January is 0, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. So that's not, so, we tend to think of that as 12, but in computer science land where we start at 0, that's 11. but the 25 is the real 25 and the 2021 is the real 2021. Okay. So this is going to be my date that I start with. On create, connect to the interface button, calendar view text view for the result. I'm getting there's a calendar and a calendar view. So the view is the widget, it's the thing you see, and then there is this built-in structure that deals with dates and times. And so I'm getting here, so this is just a code thing. So I'm making it, I don't know why I called it display, but I'm setting, I guess it's a time that I'm basing on the display. Maybe that's why I called it display. But I'm setting it based on the year and the month and the day. And then I'm using that sort of coded date, and I'm using it in my calendar view. So I'm setting the calendar view to this date. So I had the individual pieces, the year, the month, the day, and I am creating a date to be displayed, and then I displayed it. Then I have the calendar event handler. This is my calendar event handler. If you change the date, it gives you it tells you you might have multiple calendars. So it's telling you which calendar view got you here. And then it's telling you the year, the month, the day. So I'm setting my variables, my month, my year, my month, my day to those variables. And then I am performing a click. So the button, when you start, let me start it again. When you start, it goes to December 25th, and it says how many days. And then I can say, click the button and say how many days. Or I can change the date. If I change the date, that also has the effect of clicking the button. So if I say, oh, I don't care about Christmas, but I care about New Year's Eve, then not only did I change the date in the display, but it had the effect of clicking the button. And that is this perform click. So I didn't want to rewrite the code, then I wrote when I clicked the button. So I just said, I just sort of raised an event. I just sort of said, make it as though the user clicked the button. Some of the event listeners have a Boolean variable that says, you know, was it a real user thing or was it code? So the click does not, but okay. Here's my button click event. I'm going to have two dates. So I'm making today and later. And then when I make a date, it's pretty much like automatically today. So if I have no arguments in my instantiation, and I make a day, it'll be today. I made later just the same, but then I set it to something else. So I set it based on my year, my month, and my day. And then there is a method or a property called time in milliseconds, time in millis. And so I can take the later, presumably the later date, time in millis, minus today, time in millis. And then I'm dividing it by 1,000 times 60 times 60 times 24. Why am I doing that? It's milliseconds. It's the difference in 2 times in milliseconds. So 1,000 is going to be convert my milliseconds to seconds. And then there are 60 seconds in a minute, and 60 minutes in an hour, and 24 hours in a day. So this ends up converting my difference in milliseconds to difference in days. And then that is what I presented down here. And I don't know why I did this crazy Java language long thing. Probably just because I did it first in Java, and when I converted it to Kotlin, it kept this old crap. So that's how I figured out how many days from now. There can be some weird like date line issues because I didn't specify what like time region I'm in or anything like that. So if it were late at night, and if it's grabbing the date from some server that is thinks that it's a new day. If it's late at night in England, it's already the next day or something. It may be off by 1, and I didn't work too hard about this. Okay, so that is playing with the calendar and getting how many days from now in the calendar. You're just going to, in a very simple thing, bring these two together. So the first thing was the shared preferences about remembering things, and the second thing was about calendar views and calendars. And then the user could pick a new time. So now they picked what's that, New Year's Eve. But if you start again, it's going back to Christmas. And that's what I want you to change. So just introduce into the calendar a shared preference for the year, the month, and the day. So when they click this button to say how many, when they choose a new date. So on the calendar view event, when they change a new date, you're not only going to take in their information, but you're going to write it as a shared preference. You're going to put it. And then, so this, you can have this, but there's also going to be a shared preference thing where you're getting it from the shared preferences. So you will get the date that they wanted to really remember. In case they don't want to remember when Christmas is, they can choose something else. So just a simple combination of these two programs. That's the lab. That is not on the test. So if you're behind, work on the stuff that is on the test, which would be labs 8 to 15. That's what's on the test. This is not on the test. So if you're not caught up, that can wait. Any questions for the recording? All right. Stop recording then.